Right. So what I want to discuss now is how to attempt novel context questions. That's pretty much what I want to address now. So I'm just going to take the answers from model paper one that I gave, yeah, which I printed for you all and gave. I'm just going to take that directly and we can talk about it. I've uploaded the answers in the classrooms, right? You can take a look at the answers from that. I'm going to open it and we'll discuss that. So when it comes to context question in a novel, be it any novel, whether we are talking about Vendra Sweets or we are talking about Prince and the Pauper, we are talking about Bringing Tony Home. Whichever you want to do, you can do. Let's start with Prince and the Pauper. The first thing you need to do before you answer a novel context is you need to know the story of the novel. You can't answer, I mean, you can technically, actually, you can, but it will help you to answer a novel context question properly if you know the story. What do I mean by the story? I'm not saying you should know the full book. Nobody knows the full book. Prince and the Pauper is way too long. Way too long, man. Right? I don't know if the author even remembers the full book. Right? Bringing Tony Home, of course, is short. You need to know the summary of the story. Right? So you need to have the summary in your head. Okay, this is the story. Bringing Tony Home was about a boy who, he moved from this place to this place. He lost his dog, and then he came back to take his dog. Walked all the way back to uh, his new place, and then he tied the dog to his buckle, and then the dog once again was for 3 days he was sick, and then the dog went missing, and then he didn't know what happened to the dog, and then he came back to department, and then he maybe reunion with the dog, and then he never we never went back because he had those sad memories of the dog. That's Bringing Tony Home. You need to know that summary. The Prince and the Pauper is about two boys. One is a prince, one is a pauper. Right? They exchange their clothes. And then, the beggar becomes the prince and the prince becomes the beggar by mistake because they get thrown out by the guards. The prince gets thrown out by the guards. So the prince starts living the beggar's life where he's, subjected to abuse by the father. And then like the Tom's father goes through all these challenges, but he learns. The experience teaches him to become a better king, actually. Whereas on the other hand, Tom goes through all these problems at the palace. He has to behave, he has to learn the customs and traditions. And finally, in the coronation only, somehow Edward is able to prove that he is the king using the seal. So that story you need to have in your head. And third one, Vendra Sweets. Jagan, Ambika, they have a son, Mali, and Ambika dies because of a brain tumor. Jagan is like a very, very rigid, traditional guy. But then with Mali, he is not at all a good father. He doesn't know how to bring him up. Mali is completely spoiled. Goes to America, wants to become a writer, comes back with Grace, not even married, and then says he wants money. Jagan doesn't give. And then he stops, like he sends Grace away because he doesn't have money, and ends up in prison because of alcoholism. Whereas Jagan, on the other hand, wasn't strict with Mali, so Mali became very spoiled. And in the end, he's the one who actually gives money to Grace to go back home, and he hopes that Mali will become better. But then he's a cowardly father. So that story needs to be in your head. That summary, not page by page, just the summary. Then when you come to the context, be it Prince and the Pauper, Bringing Tony Home, or Vendor Sweets, when you read it, try to figure out where is it coming from the story. Now, look at this. In enrageth me that a man should be hanged upon such idle, hair-brained evidence. We're talking about somebody's talking about how there is no evidence, but they're trying to hang a person. Flimsy evidence that we spoke about in when Prince and the Pauper. And a low buzz of admiration swept through the assemblage, the people who are there, basically. Blah, blah, blah. So when you read this, you need to first try to figure out, okay, which part of the story is this? Is this the part where Tom and Edward changed the clothes? Or is this the part where Edward tried to come back and interrupt the coronation? This is basically the place where I told you, Tom tried to, be nice or be just to like innocent victims, and how the judicial system is very weak. So more or less, it's like this, guys. In the context questions, just like how in poetry, if you know the story, you can actually answer A, B, and C. To be honest, C is not about the story also. I'll tell you what C is about. A and B usually is about the story. If you know where it's coming from, you can shape, okay, put that, make sense of where it's coming from and then answer. So what is the situation given the passage? Where does it take place? If you remember the situation, this is basically where Tom tries to, like save some innocent people instead of, giving them harsh punishments without proof. This is what happens now in Prince and the Pauper, where are a weakness of the judicial system. Yes. And then look at the B question. What is the reaction of the court to Tom's decisions? Methanama, to be very honest, most of the context questions answers for essay, you can get it from the passage itself. You don't even have to read the whole story to get the answer for this. Look at the B part. What is the reaction of the court? You can just read this and find the answer. And see buzz of admiration. They were admiring it. And they have also said why. Not that admiration of the decree, or not for what Tom really spoke, but then to talk about how he pardoned the convicted prisoner, right? In terms of like showing his intelligence and spirit part. Like reading the paragraph will help you answer A and B. That's the truth. As long as you remember, you know the summary of the story. Don't overcomplicate. We are not asking in A or B about the themes. It's 2 marks, 2 marks. Out of 10, that's 4 marks, right? We're not asking you to write paragraphs about the themes or what the hell is happening and all of that. Take the question answer directly from the novel. For those of you who don't even know what Bringing Tony Home is, if you read this paragraph itself, I sat on the edge of the veranda on the floor. It was elevated slightly from ground level. I could sit and place my feet on the ground outside. If you know the summary of Bringing Tony Home, you know definitely this is this. Tony can't talk like this. Tony is a dog. Yes, so it has to be this segment, right? One of the 4 which held the blah, blah, blah. And then they basically bought water, it seems, from a galvanized bucket, blah, 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 like that part. Metanath, if you know the story, when and where does this incident take place? And they're asking, why does the narrator sit on the edge of the veranda? Those are questions you can take directly from the passage. Borul if you directly write it from the passage and try to make sense of the passage and write, you'll get that 4 marks. The A part and B part is not hard at all. To be honest, poetry wala tamai, sometimes A part is hard because sometimes if you don't remember where the lines are coming from, you will get that wrong. Method, you anyways know what the novel is. You know the summary also. So you can get a sense of the idea where the actual part of it is coming from. Method, vendor of sweets he still had to pay his visit to his house to collect a few things he needed, right? And talk about Buddha getting enlightenment, right? And then talking about he finished his morning ablutions, came out of his house carrying a little bundle, and then about Mahatma Gandhi, and then about the cold bath, and having the key in his hand. I must leave it somewhere. He's leaving his house, pretty much, Jagan. So if you know the story as to how he left the house at the end and went to the retreat, the ashram and all of that, you like basically try to answer A and B from the passage itself. When it comes to the C part, most of the students struggle in the C part because C part is hard words. No? They give you like a bunch of hard words and they basically ask you to write the meaning of that shit. Now, what I want you to remember is you're not a dictionary. To write the exact meaning that is there in the dictionary, you're not. Okay. Even if you write the exact meaning it is in the dictionary, sometimes we won't give you the mark. What we want what does it mean in that passage? For an example, right? Infirmity is spent. Where the hell is infirmity spent? God be thanked, his infirmity is spent. This is no weakling, but a king. This is very annoying, by the way, Prince and the Pauper. He hath borne himself like to his own father. Now, if you know the story, they thought Tom is mad. No? Because he was not the prince. They thought he's the prince. So they thought he's mad. The prince has actually lost his mind. So now that the moment Tom actually delivers a good, like a justice, they're like, okay, his madness is gone. He's now okay. That's what that means. You don't really need to know the dictionary definition. You can just say his mental weakness or the fact that people thought he's not mad anymore. Just write like that. Read again and again. I'm saying take it from the passage. මෙතන දෙන hair-brained evidence කියලා. Again, God only knows what the hell that means, right? But මෙතන you know the instance where Tom was talking about how saying this is not enough evidence. What the hell is this කියලා, right? Just take it from the passage. Try to read the sentence, understand what it means, write it in your words. Not a big deal. Same thing here. Bringing Tony home, of course, the entire novel is like very easy language. Prince and the Pauper, correct. One or two can become difficult. If it's extremely difficult, try to even write a lie. From the passage, you write what you know. You will get half mark at least. End of the day, it's 2 marks. No, okay. Out of 10, you might lose 2. Worst case, let's say you lose 2. Still, you might get at least 1 if you try. Right? Bringing Tony home, of course, come on. There are no hard words. They will just ask about like nauseous or giddy and stuff like that. But if you read the line, you will understand what that means. Whether, he's saying he feels uncomfortable and poddak, he can't breathe and like he wants to throw up. That's basically giddy and nauseous. You can just put that same thing here. Then Sweets also, the story itself is not hard. The English is not hard, but there are certain words like ablutions, nourishment, order of his renunciation and stuff like that. True. Those can be difficult words. Now, order of his renunciation, what the hell does that even mean? Nobody knows. Right? If you think about just the word, you're like, okay, what the hell does that mean? But read the paragraph. The sunlight, the cold bath, and the gruel. He had mitigated somewhat the order of his renunciation. They're talking about how he bathed and how he was exposed to sunlight. And that's removing. Mitigated means removing the order of his renunciation. Maybe you can read a little bit here also. He's talking about his morning ablutions and stuff like that. If you really don't know the meaning, you just say something like removing his some renunciation is like something to do with what can we say? Like retiring or going away. So if you really don't know the meaning, you can say, okay, the sun, think of it like a bath, removing something you have in, like, let's say his smell. If you think about it in the form of his smell, the bath would have removed his smell actually. So you can write something to do with removing something. To be honest, it's about he wanted to retire, but now that he has done all of these, it's like put up now he has second thoughts. Okay, that's what it means. But if you really like, if you're struggling to find the meaning, you write what you know, because at the end of the day, there's 2 marks there, right? If you're very close to the meaning, or if you're almost there, they'll give you 1 mark. Might get 1 correct, 1 wrong. Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact, is what I'm saying. You take the meaning of what you know from the passage and you write it. At least you'll get 1 mark out of the 2. You might get 1 wrong, 1 correct. It's okay. Understood what I'm saying? Yes. Even if you get, let's say, both wrong, at least it'll be 2 out of 10. The D part is where it can get tricky. As in, that is where you need to write. Because we've given, like, we usually give like 4 or 5 lines for you to write. It has to be a paragraph. By giving 4 marks, so at least write 4 sentences. Think of it like that, really. 4 marks, at least 4 sentences. Okay. They are only usually they related to the theme. They related to the something like the message given in the novel. Methana, of course, the question I've given is directly saying, comment briefly on the significant theme. What is the theme regarding this passage? Or Methana, I have said, why do you think the man doesn't invite the narrator to sit down and say, Methana, you need to explain. But once again, I'll tell you, it will be related to the passage. We won't ask you explain the theme related to the novel. That is an essay question. Context again related to the novel, what is the theme being talked about, or like what is the whole message that is being given, or like what is really happening here, right? Methana, they're asking like to explain about Tom's character, right? Because Methana, Tom actually said no, he doesn't want to give like bad punishment to innocent people. So like what that shows, he's actually an honest and good guy and all of that. That kind of a question. Ethana, feel free to write a paragraph. Write like how you would write an essay. Don't write a full page. Write at least 4 sentences, but attempt it in the form of the essay. Essay mindset with that mindset you attempt this, because we want you to explain to us. If you're asking about their character, you tell us. We show something like this. If you're asking directly the theme, then you say this shows something like this. Or we asking something related to specifically that passage, then you stick to that. Anyway, you have to stick to that passage only. But try to explain and write. You understand what I'm saying? So 10 marks is given for novel context, to be honest. Maybe scoring 10 out of 10 can be difficult. I will agree. Sometimes you might get A and B correct. C you might get wrong. Worst case, it's 2 marks. No, that's okay. Right? Or maybe at least get one of that correct, and it's 1 mark. You'll lose 1 mark. That's okay. At least. Right? Whereas, in terms of the B part, maybe getting 4 out of 4 is maybe sometimes difficult, but at least I told you, right? 4 points at least, right? Methana, why do you think the man doesn't invite the narrator to sit on a chair? You think, to be honest, you just have to take it directly from the passage and explain it. But if they ask something like this, what is the theme represented in the passage? Gandhism, there was Gandhi, no? So Gandhism, how he wanted to like live the simple life, you can talk about it. Hypocrisy, because he took the bank book, but that part was there in the passage, right? Or about his retirement. You can talk about the theme of leading a simple and happy life. Whatever, as much as possible, you write like 4 points under that, which will give you that 4 mark. Minimum, at least they'll give you 3. You understand? So for the novel context and for the novel essay, go with your primary. What is your primary? If it's Vendra Sweets, you go with Vendra Sweets. If it's Prince of the Pauper, you go with Prince of the Pauper. If it's Bringing Tony Home, you go with Bringing Tony Home. But always have one as secondary. If you are going with Prince and the Pauper or Vendra Sweets as primary, Bringing Tony Home should be your backup. Check your primary question first, right? If that is hard, if you feel like out of 10 marks, you can't even get 5, check the secondary. You might be able to score more. Essay also say, the primary, if you can't even score, like if you can't get that 5 points into your essay as soon as possible, check the secondary. Whichever is easier, you write that. But go prepare for primary first, obviously, because you spent most amount of time with that. Okay. You can go for separate ones, actually. There's no hard and fast rule that same novel only you have to write, right? In schools and all, teachers force you to go do the same because sometimes they don't know the story. In certain schools, Vendor Sweets, when they do, they don't know Prince and the Pop. So they don't even give you an option. But here, when we mark, we know all 3, right? So you are supposed to choose whichever is okay for you, actually, right? That is fine. But try to go with your primary for both, because you know both in that. You might be able to score more in that. So that's the whole perspective of the novel context. Once again, summaries A and B directly comes from the passage. Don't overthink it, directly write it. C is, as much as possible, explain in your own words and write the meaning. We don't want the definition of the dictionary and all. Just from that passage, read it and write it in your own words. If it's wrong, it's okay. At least you lose 1. But at least for the other one, you will get it correct. Right? D part, 4 marks means at least 4 points you need to give us. If it's a theme related question, give as many points as possible. Out of that 4, at least you will score 3. That's pretty much the novel context part.